open. We can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this a beneficial gathering. Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. This is a story of a person who wanted to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he wanted to be among those who are very close to Allah. But the circumstances he was born in was very different than that. He was son of a governor of a great city, the city of Baghdad. It was a famous city, it was a busy city, and people used to come. And being from the governor's family, he was accustomed to a lot of luxuries. He was brought up in a big house. He had seen all the different pleasures of life. He had seen different kinds of food, expensive clothing. And his father was a very rich person, so his father took very good care of him. He was a very smart kid. He went to school. He had the best education. And he was amongst the people who achieved the highest in whatever he tried. Everything he would attempt, he would get the best results in it. And so as a result, many years of education turned him into one of the most educated people in the city of Baghdad. He became known as the great Qadi of Baghdad. Qadi means the great judge. So he was a judge by profession, and being a judge, it's not an easy thing. You have to study a lot, you have to learn law, you have to be able to read people. So he became a judge, and as a part of his job, he would sit on a huge throne raised up, and people would bring these different cases in front of him, and he had to do the judgment. And sometimes there would be innocent people accused of false things. Sometimes there would be guilty people brought in for a real reason. And his job was to bring what? Justice. Sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Brothers over there, please come have a seat. Brother Abdullah. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Everybody's good? Can we continue?
Sure.
So he was a judge, and his job is a very difficult job, because he would sit there and they would bring these people and they would say, you know, Your Highness, Your Honor, the great Qadi, this guy is guilty of murder. He has done this or he has done that. And he had to decide what happens to this person. And sometimes he would be afraid. I hope not that I sometimes give a judgment against an innocent person, because sometimes the cases were not clear. People would come and say, I saw him with my own eyes, he did this and that, but really the person didn't do it, but he would end up going to jail. And the judge says, put him in jail for 6 months. Or this guy, hang him in public. And so his job was a very difficult job, and any mistake he makes was a big deal, because if he mistakenly sends an innocent person to a punishment, on the day of judgment, who's going to ask him? Allah, he's the bigger judge. And so he was always afraid of this. And one day he went out, he was walking on the street, and he saw a person kneeling over a guy who was on the ground laying down. And when he got closer, he found out the person on the ground has passed away. And there's a knife stuck to his body. And the person standing over him pulled the knife out, and he said, You! He ran after him, and the guy dropped the knife. He said, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. He said, Guards, arrest this man. They came and they arrested him. He saw with his own eyes, he got on the floor, the person standing over him, pulling out a knife. So he said, I have seen enough. This guy did what? He did murder. So he's the judge himself. The case started, and this guy, he's standing there. He doesn't look like a murderer. He looked very innocent. And he was crying, shedding tears. But he said, you know, I've read in the Quran, the brothers of Yusuf, They came to their father after they threw their brother Yusuf into a well. They came to their father at night time and they were crying. So crying is not a sign of innocence, it could be faked. So he said, I don't believe your tears. He said, I saw you with my own eyes pulling the knife out of this person. Explain what happened. He said, great, your honor, you're the great judge. I didn't do it. I was walking by and I saw this person on the floor and I thought maybe he could be helped. When I went up to him, I saw there was a knife on his body. So when I pulled out the knife, that's when you saw me. I had nothing to do with this. And the judge says, is there anybody that could witness for your character? That you're an honest person, you're a truthful person. He said, yes, I could invite my teacher over. He knows me. He will tell you what kind of person I am. So the judge, he doesn't want to, give a false judgment and condemn this person to death. At the same time, he has seen with his own eyes the guy pulling out the knife, and his story kind of seems shady. So he says, no problem, invite your teacher. So he writes a letter to his teacher. 3 days later, his teacher arrives, and it's an old man, white hair, back is crooked. He's walking with cane, and like group of 30, 40 people following him. And he comes to the judge, he says, Judge, you're making a mistake. This guy, I know him, he wouldn't even hurt a mosquito. He's not capable of killing another person. The judge says, but I saw with my own eyes. He says, no, whatever you saw with your own eyes, Judge, you have to know, the eyes sometimes can deceive a person. Sometimes what looks like the truth and what it actually is can be opposite. And he said an illusion and appearances can get mixed up, and you have to be able to see through the lies and see the truth of what's going on. And I'm telling you, Judge, at this moment your eyes are deceiving you. So don't just believe what you see. There is other things that's beyond that. The judge said, are you teaching me how to do my job? I am the judge. I went to court. I studied for many years. How can you come here and tell me my eyes are deceiving me? He said, I have made up my decision. I'm going to execute this person. He was offended. His ego was offended. So he got up and he was about to give his judgment. Suddenly, some of the detectives that he had set to task came in. They said, Judge, please stop. We have found the real culprit. And by this time, they have the rope around this person. They're about to hang him. The people came, they said, we have found the real murderer. He admitted to the murder. We found out this guy, he owed him money, and this happened and that happened. And they brought out the whole story, and the judge realized he was mistaken. And he was about to send a person to his death, all because what? Somebody he couldn't see the truth. Even though it looked like he saw it, he couldn't see it. So he understood. He said, oh, I still have a lot to learn. And every time he would go home at night trying to sleep, he kept seeing the face of this old man telling him, sometimes what you see and what really is are different. Your eyes can lie to you. The voices you hear can lie to you. And you have to have a deeper vision to be able to see the truth. And every time at nighttime, he's so afraid now. What's Allah going to do with me? I was about to kill an innocent person. He would be tossing and turning, and he's hearing the voice of that sheikh. He's seeing the face of that sheikh. He said, that's it. I cannot be judged any longer. So he quit his job. He quit his job, and he went to find where this sheikh was. And he went to this village on the side of the city. And when he went there, he found this village is, full of average people. There's some blacksmiths. They're working with iron. They're beating this metal. And they get these blocks of iron ore. You know what iron ore looks like? They get these iron ore, and then they melt it, they heat it, and then they beat it, and they hit it, and they hit it. And they're making spoons, and they're making things. And, on the other side, you have a carpenter. He's cutting wood down with saw. And he's carving it, and he's making it chairs, and you see on the floor like all the little carved pieces of wood falling on the ground, and he's carving, and he's making a chair, he's making a vase, he's making this, and this Qadi, who used to be Qadi, who used to be judge, he's looking around at the simple way these people live. And he saw ahead of him some guy with a bunch of sheep, he's shepherding the sheep, and then he saw there was a person walking around asking everybody, do you know the meaning of kalima tawheed? What's kalima tawheed?
Oneness.
La ilaha illallah. This guy, he was going from person to person to person, and he was asking, can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? And the guy says, get away from me. He goes to another person, can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? And on and on and on. He comes up to the judge, he says, can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? The judge says, La ilaha illallah. Yeah, it means there is no God but Allah. He says, can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? He says, it means there is no God but Allah. The guy looks at him, deep in his eyes. He says, can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? The guy says, And as he's thinking, what do I tell this person? He walks away, goes up to another person, says, can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? Right? And somebody comes up and says, don't worry about this guy, he's gone crazy. He asked everybody this question. And everybody has answered him, but nobody's answer is satisfactory to him.
I don't know how real iron looks like.
Iron ore?
In Minecraft.
Yeah, in Minecraft, it looks like a giant piece of rock. It has like little pieces of metal in it, but you have to get the metal out. And so,
just like Minecraft.
yeah, just like Minecraft. So what happens now? This guy, he's looking for the sheikh. He says, have you heard of this sheikh? His name is Yunus Amra. Have you seen where he is, where he lives? They say, oh, this sheikh, we know he comes here sometimes, but nobody really knows what he looks like. But we've heard about him. There's a lot of his students around, but nobody knows what he looks like because he doesn't really walk the marketplaces. He says, okay. And he goes to the marketplace. He sees this man. He's got a cloak over his head. He's buying some apples. And there's a guy, he has a cart full of apples. And this person is choosing the best, apples, putting them aside, and separating the worst apples, putting them in a bag. And he buys the worst apples, and the guy says, why are you buying the worst ones? He says, don't worry, I just want these ones. These are good ones. He says, okay, it's the same price. You can take the best ones if you like. He says, I'm happy with the worst ones. It's okay, thank you. So the guy is like confused. And when he walks away, he notices his walk kind of looks like the walk of the sheikh. So he runs after him, but before when he turns to the corner, he sees the man is gone. He comes back to the person who was selling the apples. He says, who was that man? He says, I don't know. He comes here once in a while. He always buys the worst things. I don't know why. He says, does he look like this and that and that? And he describes the sheikh. He says, yes, he looks like that. He says, that must be the guy. So he waits there. And as he's waiting there, he's hearing in the background, tong, 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 people beating on the iron. He's hearing people carving the wood. He's hearing a person walking around. Can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? Right? And he's sitting there waiting, and he spends 1 day there, 2 days there, 3 days there. He spends 2-3 weeks. And every day he's hearing, tong, tong, tong. Can you tell me the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? Right? And finally he sees this man come again. And he's about to buy some apples. And the man walks up to him and says, are you the sheikh that came to the place? And by this time, his beard is grown. You can't recognize the judge anymore. But he's in search of something deeper. And he knows this whole time, he thought he had knowledge, he thought he knew, but he couldn't see the truth. And so he wants to be able to see the truth whenever it comes to him. So when he sees the sheikh, he says, are you the sheikh that came to the... And the sheikh looks at him and he says, the qadi. You have been removed from your seat. What happened? He says, I'm here to become your student. Can you teach me how to see the truth? The sheikh says, if you want to see the truth, if you want to be one of my students, you have to go through some tests. He says, I'm willing to do the tests because I almost killed an innocent person. I can't live with myself like this. I don't know how many people in the past I have sent to their death. Maybe they're innocent too. I need to be able to see the truth. Can you please help me? He says, what you need to do, he gives him a bag it's a leather bag filled with water. He says, put this over your shoulder, go around the city, go to the well once in a while, fill it up with water and give people you see water. He says, easy enough, I can do that. He says, good, take it. Puts it over his shoulder. And he takes the bag and he starts going person to person. And he says, would you like some water? The guy says, sure. And he gives him a cup of water and he drinks. And as he walks away, somebody else comes behind him. Do you know the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? Right? And so he's following this guy around. Whoever he asks, he goes and gives them water. And after some time, he's going, refilling the bucket, he's coming back, he's refilling the bucket, and the bucket is heavy and this leather sap over his shoulder. Judge, he was always sitting, studying. He's not a strong guy. But now he has to carry this thing around and it starts to hurt his shoulder. And the bag, from the weight of the water, starts causing infection over his shoulder. But still, he's going around and his back is getting crooked a little bit. He's going around one by one, giving people water. And he sees some kids, they found a turtle. And they turn the turtle upside down and they start spinning the turtle. Right? And he goes up to them and he says, children, don't do that. And as soon as he says, don't do that, they all see him and they run away. Right? And he turns the turtle right side up. And as he's walking, he trips over a rock. He puts the rock aside. And when he stands up, he sees the sheikh in the distance watching him. He says, come, you will be admitted to the academy. So he goes to the place. And they go up the mountain. They walk for some time. And as he's walking, they see another turtle on the path. And the sheikh says, you know this turtle? He has lived through many kings. Many kings passed before this turtle. And this turtle is still alive, still walking, still healthy. Do you know why they live so long? The man says, no, I don't know. Tell me. He says, because they're never in a hurry. They're not in a hurry. Meanwhile, when the sheikh is telling him this, the guy was thinking, man, I really need to go and learn how to see the truth because I've spent like 2 months here and I have to get back to Baghdad. And he was thinking all of these things. And the sheikh tells him, you see this turtle? The reason it lives for a long time is because it's never in a hurry. And the sheikh just looks at him. And he keeps walking. And the man realizes, whoa, he knew what I was feeling. He told me to be calm, to not be in a hurry. And as they're walking, he says, how far is this place? The sheikh says, the place is here, but the journey before us is very long, so be patient. So they enter this place, and on top of it, it's a muddy house built up with mud. It's very simple. There isn't carpets on the floor. It's just all mud and some plants growing here and there. And on the top, it's inscribed, Faqir Khana. Faqir means what? Somebody who's poor. Somebody who's in a state of need. And Khana is like a place where they gather. So he's like, Faqir Khana, but I'm the son of the governor, I'm a rich guy, I have a lot of money, I don't belong here in the Faqir Khana. He says, Sheikh, I'm not Faqir, why do I have to be here? He says, my friend, everybody in this world is Faqir. Only Allah, He's the rich one. He says, what do you mean? Explain. I have money, I have all of these things, how can I be called a Faqir? He says, do you need your money? He says, yes. No. He says, okay, as long as you need it, you're a Faqir. He says, what? He says, here what we learn is that everything belongs to Allah. All the money, all the buildings, all the food, it all belongs to Allah. And you have to understand that you're living in the world of Allah. And Allah is the one that will take care of you. And so what you have to do first of all is let go of everything and hold on to Allah. He says, because you are still faqir no matter how much you have. But Allah, He's the one that can give you. And the man, he nods, he says, I understand. He goes inside. And the sheikh says, okay, first thing you need to do is, do you know the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? He says, a man was asking me in the village. He says, I know, but do you know the meaning of Kalimat Tawheed? He says, it means La ilaha illallah, there is no God except for Allah. He says, yes, this is the meaning on the surface. Do you know the deeper meaning? He says, I didn't know there was a deeper meaning. He says, then this is what you need to do. You pray your 5 daily prayers. You fast Mondays and Thursdays. And every night before you sleep, sit down and say the kalima of Tawheed. Sit down before you sleep, say, La ilaha illallah, 100 times. And the man says, you know, why do I have to do that? He says, because the Prophet ﷺ was once asked, Ya Rasulullah, teach me a dhikr. Teach me a remembrance. That is the best dhikr that Allah gave to any prophet. And the Prophet ﷺ said, La ilaha illallah. And the more you say it, he said, the deeper meanings of it Allah will show you. So he started, and he noticed inside this faqir khana, there's small little rooms like cubicles, and in each one of them there's a person sitting there, they're worshipping in the nighttime. In daytime they get up, one of them picks up a water, he goes down, one of them he goes out to help people carry things, one of them goes out to remove rocks from the road, and they're always doing something in service of the people. And so he says, so what am I to do? He says, your job is the water. He says, okay. He gets the water, he goes out and he's giving people water and everything. And after some time, every night he's saying, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. He falls asleep. When he falls asleep, he's dreaming. In his dream, he's still saying, La ilaha illallah. But when he turns to the side, he sees a person sitting next to him, also sleeping. And he turns to the side, he sees another person sitting next to him, sleeping. And he's like, La ilaha illallah. And he sees rows of people sitting there, sleeping. And he gets scared and he jumps up. And he sees that there's nobody there. So he continues, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. Again, he starts seeing people sitting next to him, and they're sleeping like this. And again, he gets scared, he wakes up, and he runs out of the room, he goes to the sheikh's room. And the sheikh is sitting there. He's just finished his tahajjud prayer, and he's in the middle, he's making dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Sheikh, I'm seeing things. What's going on with me? Sheikh says, sit down, Yunus. What's going on? Tell me. He says, I was just saying La ilaha illallah, and I start seeing things. There are people sitting next to me and they're sleeping. He said, you saw sleeping people? He says, yes. He says, well, why don't we go wake them? So come with me. So he stands up, and the sheikh starts walking, and he starts following the sheikh, and they go to the room of this person. And when he walks in, he sees 7 people sitting there, all of them asleep, like this. When he gets closer, he sees they're all himself. He is sitting there, sleeping, but there's 7 of them. And he says, why do you think they're asleep? He says, I don't know. He says, I don't know. He says, maybe you need to change some things about your life, because inside looks like you're still sleeping. He says, your words now, you were saying La ilaha illallah, now you say Allah. He says, Allah. As soon as he says Allah, one of those 7 wakes up. He says, Allah. And he says, you see, you have woken one of them. So continue seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when the sheikh walks away, he wakes up and he's sitting there still in his position, and he's saying, Allah, Allah, Allah. And he's like, was that all a dream? He's shocked, like it felt so real. He went, he brought the sheikh, he talked to the sheikh, and the sheikh told him a new dhikr to make. And when he realized he was dreaming all of this, but it didn't feel like a dream. So he realizes maybe the sheikh taught him a dhikr to do that's different than the other people. So every night, instead of saying La ilaha illallah now, he was saying Allah. But everybody else in the other rooms were saying La ilaha illallah. And one day, he's sitting there saying Allah, 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 Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, the end of time will not happen. The end of time will not happen as long as there is one person on the face of the earth saying Allah, 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 Allah. Right, so he's saying Allah, 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 Allah. One of the other faqirs was walking by, and he noticed him saying Allah, Allah. And he felt like, why is this guy doing something other than what the sheikh taught us? Is he somebody special to the sheikh? Something going on? And he felt kind of jealous, like, because they have a competition of who gets to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. And he's making a different dhikr than us. Is he on the next level? Are we behind? Are we on the next level? But I never did the dhikr, so what's going on? So he starts watching this man. Every day he takes the water, he goes out, and this person who is supposed to be saying La ilaha illallah, he's looking at him. And he's trying to come up with a way to bring him down in the eyes of the sheikh. And one day they're sitting with the sheikh is teaching them. He says, hasad, envy. It's a serious disease. And it can happen in anybody. This is one of the diseases of the heart. He says, envy can eat up a person's good deeds. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that whoever has hasad, it will eat up their good deeds like fire burns up firewood. So he says, oh people, beware of hasad. And he looks at this person. And the man is sitting there. He says, okay. But he doesn't realize the Shaykh was talking to him, because in his mind, the whole thing in his mind that's bothering him is, how come this guy, he's new, I've been here in this faqir khana for 10 years, he just came here and he's making different dhikr than us. So he's so caught up with this. The next day he goes out and he sees this person giving water to people. He goes, as he's giving water, one of the houses open up and a girl walks out. And as soon as this man sees the girl, he looks down and she says, can I have some water, please? He says, yes, yes. He pours the water, he gives it to her, and when he hands her the cup, his hand touches her hand accidentally. And the one watching him says, aha, you see, he touched her hand on purpose. He's not a faqir, he's a pretending person. He doesn't know the difference between mahram and non-mahram. What's the difference between mahram and non-mahram? A person who's non-mahram, you're not supposed to have any kind of physical contact. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it is better for you to have a nail struck into your head than to touch the hand of a non-mahram woman. Right? This is for your protection. And so when the man sees this, he runs to the Shaykh and says, Shaykh, he says, I saw something crazy. I saw something that will shock you. The Shaykh was busy making a dhikr. He says, come back later, I'm busy. He says, okay. He walks out and he goes to the other faqirs inside the house. He says, brothers, we are here for the sake of Allah. We're trying to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But do you know, in the time of Musa alayhi salam, there was a drought one time and there was no rain, and Musa alayhi salam asked Allah for rain, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, oh Musa, there is one person amongst you, he's a sinner, he's been sinning for 40 years, and if he doesn't come out and he's not punished, I will not send rain down. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala held the rain back because of one person's sins, and the other faqirs are listening. What are you trying to say? He says, look, we're here for the sake of Allah, but there is one person amongst us, he's not a real faqir. He's sinning. He doesn't know the difference between mahram and non-mahram. They said, what are you saying? He said, this new guy that came, I saw him on the street today touching the hand of another woman. And they're like, what? Really? Right? And so when he walks in, he's carrying the water, his shoulders are hurting, there's an infection on his shoulder. He walks in and he says, Salaam alaikum to all the other faqirs sitting there. And they all kind of look at him funny. Like they know he did something wrong. And he senses that. He's like, what's going on? And they kind of turn away. Alaikum salam. And he says, something wrong? He pulls one of them aside. Hey, talk to me. What's going on? He says, the word is you don't know the difference between mahram and non-mahram. He says, what? Who's saying this? He says, that guy. He said, you don't know. He gets so mad. He's spreading rumors about me. How dare he talk about me like this? He drops the water. He goes over to the room of the other person. And he's sitting there. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. And he grabs me and he says, you! How could you say this about me? What do you know about me? You don't know anything. And he's yelling and yelling. And the Shaykh walks up behind him. He says, what's going on here? He says, Ya Shaykh, this guy, he's spreading rumors about me. I have to talk to you, Shaykh. Shaykh says, in my room, come with me. So he goes over to the room of the Shaykh. He says, Shaykh, I have left my job as a qadi. I came from a rich family. I had everything I could desire. I left all these luxuries, all of these things, and I came here to be your student so I could see the truth. He says, I have been carrying this water, and it has hurt my shoulder, and it has caused this pain and everything, and I never complained. And now that I'm trying to do my best, this man is spreading rumors about me and creating obstacles for me. And I never complained, but Shaykh, there's a limit to things. And the Shaykh looks at him and he says, in your hikayat, there is shikayat. He says, in your story, in your whole narration, it was full of complaints. He says, Yunus Samra, you are no longer in the Faqir Academy. Get out, you're expelled. And he's shocked. He says, what? I didn't do it. He says, get out. You have to leave. He walks out, crying, tears rolling from his eyes. And he's so sad. He couldn't even make this. I mean, he was the best in everything he did. Now that he's trying to come and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Shaykh says, get out of here. You're not welcome here. Don't show your face here ever again. And he walks out crying. And the person who plotted against him and spread rumors about him, he's in his room, he's looking. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Come on. Right? And as he walks out, the Shaykh says, amazing is the wisdom of Allah. Who does He include and who does He remove? Really, who is included and who's removed? Only Allah knows. It's not being in some room, it's not being in something, but the Shaykh says who He includes and who He removes. Amazing is His wisdom. Yunus, he's walking down and he sees one of his faqir brothers picking rocks from the ground, and there's still a lot of rocks on the ground. So Yunus says, before I go, let me do something. He goes, he finds the children playing outside. He says, children, there's a new game. Do you know about it? He's still sad, his heart is burning, but still he has a smile on his face and he's talking to the children. He says, there's a new game. This is what you do. He puts a stick on the ground. He says, each one of you, go grab a rock. And you stand far from the stick and you throw the rock towards the stick, and whoever hits the stick wins. And if you have the most rocks collected by the stick by the end of the game, you'll be the winner. So the children are like, really? Right? One of them has a turtle, he's spinning upside down. He puts the turtle, they start all going, picking up rocks, and they start bringing the rocks, and they start throwing the rocks. And Yunus sees the turtle, he picks up the turtle, and he remembers what the Shaykh said. The journey before us is long, even though the house is here. And do you know why the turtles live so long? They're not in a hurry. And so he picks up the turtle, and the children are now picking up the rocks, they're playing with the rocks. He picks up the turtle, and he starts walking away, thinking about what the teacher told him. I'm going to stop here. And we'll continue inshallah next week. Assalamu alaikum.